Let's try it again. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Welcome back to the world, man. What's good with you? Welcome to Let's Go Live. Let's go. Good to see y'all, man. Hope everything's safe and sound. Thumbs up if you can hear me. You know what? I ain't even gonna trip off that because I can't really see everybody's comments anyway. So yeah, we had some hiccups yesterday, and I ain't for the games today, so we just gonna get right to it, man. Appreciate y'all for stopping through. Oh, let's shout out the new sponsors. We got a couple new patrons from yesterday. This is a real move right here because y'all don't realize y'all are sponsoring a major endeavor. Brian Bailey is a new sponsor. Mish Brown is a recurring patron. J Elite Consulting Group. You get 2 days worth of shout outs for the money you put on the pockets on the books yesterday. What's up, Joe Hill? Rodney Wallace, homeboy from way back, homeboy. He's a week-long patron. And my man Kevin from West Coast. He bought in for a day. Yes, so that's what it is. Welcome to this program. My name is Lamont King. This is Let's Go Live. Tell somebody about it. Share the page if you're watching on Facebook. It's easy. If you're on YouTube, I don't know what to tell you, man. YouTube been dripping. Like YouTube is really, it's some things, man. And I'm not trying to lose these shows. And the only way, here's the situation. I don't want to let y'all in on everything, but the only way I can keep these shows and replay them and repost them is if I use a certain software, right? But I'm having issues with the software when I try to run it through YouTube. So that's why I keep telling y'all download the Humor Mill app, because again, we are still in the soft launch, and fairly soon, the only way you're going to get the show is on the app. You can be watching it on your TV by way of the app, computer, whatever mobile device, but I will not be restricted to these two platforms that take the money from you. So I'm trying to build up my YouTube, yes, because I want to replay clips and post clips, but streaming daily is live is going to be a whole nother thing. So that's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand. Thanks. Shout out to my regulars. What's up, Ray? My regulars. All right, man. So where do we begin? Wake up with a headache every morning. Your eyes is twitching because the world is on fire. It's 100 degrees in Siberia. The most ridiculous recent headline is your president is talking about authorizing to full uses of the federal government to prosecute for vandalism and I don't even want to read what it's called, with the persecution of American freedom and rights, whatever, for all these people who are taking down statues. For all these people taking down statues. So he's basically saying it's retroactive. They're gonna start pressing charges, going through the video and pressing charges on people taking down these statues and putting them in they're facing maximum 10 years of jail time. So that's the new move. BS. I call BS. Like it's a wild window right now. It's a really wild window for getting stuff done. It's a lot of layers to it. A lot of stuff you may not agree with, but it's, we got to figure out a list. What got to go and what can stay. Because they tore down, they tried to tear down Andrew Jackson in Lafayette Square yesterday because he owned slaves and because he was really, really barbaric and brutal to Native Americans. Even though the seventh president did a lot of good, but here's my question: we got to have a list. We got to have a list. What I got you, Red. Stand by. We got to have a list. Like what can go and what can stay, because you're taking the statue down and saying that he's oppressive and he represents slavery. And these are all white people, by the way, activating on the statue yesterday. But we got to have a list, because what you gonna do about the money though? He on the money. So this little battle we doing right now, We got to figure out, what can stay, what can go, what's oppressive. They talking about changing schools. You got to change schools, street signs, street names, neighborhoods. Um, just the vast, like I'm for it. Don't get me. I ain't no bootlicking trustee. I'm for it. I want to see it all happen. But we got to figure out a map, because we're gonna be doing this for the next 10 years, and I'm with it. If it's statue by statue, building by building, but it's got to be a plan behind it to replace it with something. There's got to be some economic benefit to all the shenanigans. That's just my opinion. Because you can get mad and say, "Oh, that." You go look at the building and see the statue up in front of the joint, and you be like, "Wait a minute, let's read this plaque." And if the plaque don't got the right lyrics on it, is it coming down? Because it's a lot of banking institutions, it's a lot of university, it's a lot of neighborhood parks, it's a lot of lakes. Every day that were key cornerstones of systemic ethnic bias. That's my phrasing, and I want y'all to take that and run with it. Systemic ethnic bias. I don't say systemic racism, because we still haven't even really figured out what racism is. Everybody has their own definition. You can argue that race is a construct, sure, but you can also argue that what's common code and policy in this country is based on your literal racial makeup. So I say systemic ethnic bias. Because you can't deflect that or explain out of that one. Systemic ethnic bias. All that black people could be racist too. No, I ain't trying to hear none of that. Let me see, Gianni. Let me go here real quick. Gianni says statues should be replaced by all people of color who are unsung. The money should be reprinted with new people and a trading system. That's gonna take a minute. Well, then again, it might not. We've seen more happen in less time, so it could. You're right. Let's get it moving while we got it, though. We only got a little bit of time. All right. Let me get to it, man, because my man's waiting right now. I invited him on the show. This gentleman, our first guest on Let's Go Live today. This gentleman is an author, right? And I see him. We go back and forth on social media, and again, I catch some of his posts, and they really kind of speak out. And he's got a book called Seeding to Build, and I'll let him explain it. But it's basically, hold on. I'll give you a brief rundown. Stand by. Be patient. You'll be fine. It's called Seeding to Build, a marginalized voice, devalued, dismissed, disenfranchised, and demonized. And basically, what we're talking about here is, here's a slight blurb on the book. A marginalized voice is a seminal read that exposes the nuanced behaviors of young Black boys and the some SAT word, iatrogenic practices of alleged professionals. It brings to the surface the duality and criminality that exists in a broader sense, to include those emotional crimes committed against young kings. So, a lot of words there, but basically, what I got from it and what I want to get out of this discussion is, because this is something that I deal with in the day job, is trying to figure out, right? All of us are so smart. We got all the answers. We got so much background. And we got so much expertise and street knowledge and common sense and book smart. But it's our youngsters, right? Our young Black men who really are being left to figure things out. If we can't sit down and have that one-on-one conversation, this is what's going on. This is why. This is what you need to do. So if we cannot have that dialogue or figure out a way to have that dialogue with our young brothers who are supposed to be the young soldiers leading the way, a lot of this action that's going on right now is going to be for naught. That's just my opinion. So right about now, if I could bring in the good brother, author, Reginald, let's get him in here. Yeah, with you.
What's up with you, Lamont? How you doing today, man?
You got to turn your mic on.
It's
on. It was a little delayed.
Can you hear me? All right, hold on.
Yeah, I can hear you.
This technology thing. All right, can you hear me?
Lamont, yeah, we good. It was just a little delay.
Hear me?
I can hear you.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm out in the
Can you
woods,
hear
man.
me?
I'm here in North Carolina, man, taking care of some family issues, man. I appreciate you having me on.
No, it's all good. Can you hear me though?
Yes,
Let's
sir.
make sure we okay. There we go. We all caught up. All right. So you down in the woods, man. Talk a bit about your background first off before we get into the book and the
Um,
content of it.
Before I even do that, man, I want to do something really quick, Lamont. Like I said, I'm here down in North Carolina, man, where my home, where I was raised. Tomorrow, I'm going to bury my older brother,
Oh,
and
sorry to hear that.
I've been home for a week now, taking my younger brother to his chemo, man. He has brain cancer, man. But it's been a blessed time, man, hanging out with my little brother. So, man, I'm doing this show in honor of them, man. So I just appreciate you having me on, man. So it's all good, man.
That's what's up. My condolences. I'm glad you're able to support them in this
Appreciate
time.
that, man.
Yeah.
But long story short, man, I'm a kid. I'm a kid born in New York City, man. But I was raised in a small country town called Chadron, North Carolina, man. And I grew up where our community didn't have much in terms of material. We had no material wealth, but we had a lot of love, man. We had a lot of spiritual wealth. And I grew up with older men, you know, the OGs at the time, the elders, man, who always had their hands on us, were always pouring into us. And I grew up wanting to play NBA basketball. You know, I had a pretty vicious game, but what I didn't realize was while I was trying to be this next NBA star, man, especially my grandfather had his hand on me, and the things he was putting into me inspired me, and I didn't know it, inspired me to get into this social work field or get into social services field, man, and just impact young kings the way that those old men impacted me. So that's just who I am in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. And so what made you a marginalized voice? What made you see the need to or see fit to put the pen to paper, the words to the page?
It's funny, man. I wish I can take credit for the. I think it's genius. I mean, I don't say that to be arrogant, but I think it's a genius in terms of the book. But I wish I was smart enough to say that I saw the genius. I do have a career in journalism, and actually, even before I got into the career of journalism, I used to just write a lot. You know, just journal stuff. And when I first started writing this book, I didn't realize it was a book. It was just some stuff in me because I'm a behavioral health specialist. So I've been working with. When I chose my clientele, I chose older men. And what I found out is in working with older men in this high risk population, you know, kind of going in and out of jail. Because you know, I had a conversation with you a long time ago. I wanted you to work with an older brother, but it didn't work out that way. And what I found out, Lamont, was as I was working with these older brothers, these older men, they were old chronologically, man, but really in terms of their spirit and their souls, I was working with youth. And you know, because they were stuck at 12 or 13 or 14 or 15 because of some trauma that had taken place in their lives. And I began to kind of transition to working with both older men and working with youth as well. And so the first 4 chapters of the book, I didn't even realize I had written a book. I was just writing down the stuff that had been placed in my spirit in terms of working with these men, as well as working with these young kings. And then that SAT word you say, it's funny. I laugh when you said it, right? Because I was a few years ago, I used to do, I had this program where I worked with, well, actually, it's supposed they say gang leaders, but they weren't really gang leaders, and but they were people who had violent past, and we used to have this bi-weekly meeting over the phone, and this older white woman from somewhere like Milwaukee or somewhere said this word iatrogenic, and I didn't know what it meant. Like, what the hell does that mean?
I never even heard that. Iatrogenic.
Iatrogenic, and I wrote it down. And what I was amazed about was this woman was she understood the nuances that young black boys went through, and I didn't understand how she knew it. But what she was talking about was this iatrogenic behavior, which is basically, it's a medical term where it says that well-meaning people do unintentional harm. So,
wow.
So in other words, you might come into the hospital or come to the doctor's office to be healed, but even though they didn't intend to do this harm, by the time you left, there was some harm done. And so I began to pay attention to how therapists were working with our young kings, and we need to have therapists working with our young kings. But I began to notice how they were working with our young kings, but they were doing harm. I began to notice how the educators was working with our young kings, but they were doing harms. I began to recognize how parents were, they loved their children, but yet and still they were doing harm. And so this book was about exposing those harms that you don't realize that you're doing, that's affecting young kings and how they grow up.
Wow. And that's called iatrogenic.
Iatrogenic. Yeah.
And the study of that is iatrogenics. Is that iatrogenics?
Hey,
but no, that's
wait, Lamont. That's the only SAT word I know, man.
Yeah. No, it's good because now I'm about to throw that out every chance I get. That's you being iatrogenic, goddamn it. You know what I mean? I'm throwing that out whenever I get. Yeah. No, but that's real though, because especially with what they call generational trauma, right? It's things that I can see that falls into the category where, from a parent standpoint, you raising your child the way you was raised, not really realizing how damaging that your actions could be. Yep. You know what I mean? So you got a new mindset, you got a new body that you're pouring into old poison, and your kids are growing up and activating off that poison. And you never really knowing that you mean well, like you said, we mean well, but we doing our kids a disservice a lot of times.
Yeah.
And then we sending them into classrooms where teachers don't look like them, the administrators don't look like them.
That's right.
They mean well, but they have no idea how to relate to them.
That's right.
So it's gonna have a negative impact.
Negative impact. And what you said was, what you open up, man, we can close the show with, man. We got to get into the business of learning to have conversation with these young brothers, man, because really they have the solutions. We just have to listen to them and then help guide them in those solutions, man. I always say when working with kids, and I tell therapists this all the time, you have to allow these young kings to talk long enough, man, so that they can come up with their own solutions. And we don't need to be the ones trying to tell them how to move this path. We do have some genius that we can give them, but this is their role to travel, and we have to help them along the way. And we have to stop being disrespectful of their thought process. And that's a lot about marginalization, man, is that, a lot of people don't think that what they have to say is valuable enough to be heard, man. So what you said in the opening was so on point.
Yeah, because I deal with teenagers and preteens and whatnot, and it's just wild to see the mentality. I have to take a step back a lot of times in my approach. I got to be like, all right, this ain't the 80s for one, and two, I'm not my dad, right? But I want to be. I want to get them jewels, because now that I'm on the other side, all of that was valuable. So I want to give it to you immediately, but you can't handle it. So I got to figure out, I got to listen to y'all. I got to hear how y'all talking. I got to see what y'all talking about, see what y'all into. And then later on, insert myself in the conversation and try to at least, kind of ease in non-threateningly. Cause a lot of them got their guards up, especially to men, because they don't respect or acknowledge male authority.
That's right.
Already got the guard up, and then I got to ease in non-threateningly and talk about things that they know about. But for people who are not, in direct contact with that population, what are some solutions to deal with these issues of marginalized voices with regards to our young men?
Yeah, I have a 10-point platform, man, and I actually do not have the card, but let me see what I can call off of there. I know the first one is like, and this is important because this is what happened when I was growing up, man. Is just embrace a young king, man. We get to the point, man, where we just kind of move about, man, and we never really notice them. And I make it a habit, and I can't say I do it all the time, man, but I make it a habit, man, when I'm in the presence of young kings, man, I just want to let them know that their presence in this space and time, man, is important. Hey, how you doing, young king? What's up, man? Like if I saw them with the king hat on, hey, yo, what's up, man? What's up with the hat, man? Tell me about the hat. And so the first thing you have to do is you got to embrace them. Another thing you have to do is when you're in their company, man, allow them what I call a bilateral conversation, right? So in other words, I'm not sitting here as the authority and I'm giving you all I'm giving you my wisdom and my jewels, man. Let's sit down and let's chat, man. Because I'm sure that in this conversation you're going to teach me something too. So have that bilateral conversation. And again, I always say this, man. When it's not just young kings, but when anybody feels heard, they feel important, man. So, embrace them, have that bilateral conversation. What are some of the other things I say? I wish I had the 10-point platform. I can't remember it by hand, but there's a lot of, no matter where you are, who you are, there's a way, man, to make them feel important. And I make it my business. And again, I can't say I do it all the time, but when I see these young kings, yo, what's up, man? Even if they don't speak to me, because my speaking can change their day.
Yeah. And I've seen that. I've definitely seen that. It's easier said than done, but a lot of times you really can't disarm them with just an approach. Now you're gonna get the villains.
Absolutely.
The villains are there. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean? But you have to be wise and humble enough at the same time to be like, all right, he not where he need to be. I'm gonna keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of them, all they know is hostility.
That's all, exactly. And you can't plant grapes, man, and get tomatoes, right? So I'll give you an example to your point. So one day I'm in Wawa's on Richie Marlboro Pike, and the young brothers wearing a Raiders hat. And this was about the time that, and I call young kings, not just 14, 15, young kings, 35, 36, even them, because again, like I say, sometimes they're stuck at 15. So he's wearing a Raiders hat. And this is about the time that Marshawn Lynch was thinking about coming back to the Raiders. So I saw the hat. So I said, hey, yo, what's up, man? How you doing, man? Everything good? I hear Marshawn Lynch is, trying to come to the Raiders. So, he gritted on me. Lamont, he gritted on me, right? And, I kind of went on about my business. I get online to pay for my stuff. And as I'm online, he comes behind me. And I say to the cashier, yo, I got him too. And when I said that, oh man, what's up, man? Man, thank you, man. And I changed his whole day.
Right.
And something as small as that, man, like I say, a lot of times, man, they only know hostility, or, why are you being nice to me? You know what I'm saying? So we have to understand what has been placed in their cup, and when we begin to understand what's been placed in their cup, then we can't take stuff personal. And I try not to take anything personal.
So you talk about young kings and of any age, and you talk about some of our older brothers who are stuck in an adolescent mindset. Do you deal with them the same way? Like they're coming with age and experience and all of that. So do you still deal with them the same way?
Pretty much. Look, I say this about my grandfather. My grandfather had a 6th grade education, but I call him the greatest therapist that I ever met. And the thing is, my grandfather knew how to frame a conversation, and he knew how to ask questions, right? Like I look at you, Lamont, right? And you are, in my opinion, you are like one of the foremost critical thinkers that they are. And you ask questions, man, that make people go back and think. And so what happens is whether it's a grown man stuck in adolescence or it's an adolescence, right? If you ask those questions, it will cause them to think, man, and it'll cause them to hold up a little bit. So pretty much, yeah, man. It's again, it just comes back down to you got to deliver these services, but it's not about delivering the services. It's about how you deliver the service. So it's always about how you deliver that conversation, how you ask that question. And if you ask intriguing questions, believe it or not, whether it's somebody who's 50 who asks 14 or somebody who's 14 trying to be 50. It doesn't matter. Let me share this with you right quick, right?
Okay.
To give you, I was on a radio program, man, about 2 years ago, and this is in the beginning of my book, in the intro. This thing affected me like for a long time. The guy says, we like in the second segment of the radio program, and the guy says, I'm 63 years old, and he's emotional when he says this, Lamont. I'm 63 years old, and I've been waiting all my life for you to say. I've been waiting all my life to hear what you just said. Now, at this point, I don't know what I said. Right? I have no clue what I said. But the thing that just kind of tore me up was it took you 63 years to hear it. You know what I'm saying? And how many other young kings, man, will live their life, man, waiting 63 years to hear something, and that will impact them in a negative way. I'm not saying he wasn't a good father or a good husband or whatever, but I'm saying he was not as great of a husband or a father that he could have been, having to carry the weight of never being heard, man.
A marginalized voice.
A marginalized voice, yep.
So now, all right. So fast forward to what's happening in the country right now, country and the culture. There's an obvious shift, one way or the other. However, whatever side you want to be on, there is a shift taking place. Do you think that now is the time for these voices to be heard more? Because everybody's getting the stage right now. But do you think it'll be a time where those marginalized voices that are pushed to the margins can reach the middle of the page, especially as far as young kings are concerned?
Look, it's going to have to be, because otherwise, Spike Lee said, see if I can get this right. They asked Spike Lee about how he felt about the looting and rioting, and he said he didn't necessarily agree with it, but how do you appropriate 400 years of misbehavior against us? And the thing is, I think it's sometimes, man, our voices are going to have to come to the forefront, and it's going to have to come from young kings, young queens. I say early in the book, man, young kings are not the only people who are marginalized. I just happen to speak to this population because I don't think that anybody's really speaking to it. But we are going to have to we're going to have to have our voice, or they're going to have their voices heard, man. If we don't push to get to the middle of the page, we're just, look, man, we got to speak up, and we got to teach these young boys to speak up, and we got to teach these young boys about who they are and who they were meant to be. And that's why I call them young kings, man, because they're geniuses, but who they are, that genius is being suppressed by a system that says you're not worthy. And we just gotta, we gotta stop that, man, because we can no longer allow someone to put their knee on our neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
And not only is the genius being suppressed, it's being manipulated, because we see some of our genius brains, but their genius ain't being applied to shit that matters. You know what I mean? So they're being manipulated. You got them in the music industry, you got them in sports. I mean, they're flat out specimens. If you will. They flat out, you can make this beat, this music that gets everybody jumping. Like there's something to that. You know what I'm saying? But you're being manipulated in a sense where it's being presented for you that these are the only two things that you can excel in America, in this culture, sports and music.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I've been making this argument since I put the book out. Right, you can go anywhere, and as we travel around the DMV, Lamont, we see older men out there working with young boys, playing football and things of that nature, and that's great. But the same way, you look at LeBron James, who at 18 was touted as being the chosen one. We knew that he was going to have some type of successful career in the NBA, and we knew that he was going to do it for a long time if he was going to be injury free. But my question is, why aren't we at some level creating our next district attorneys the same way we are creating our next running backs, right? Why aren't we creating our next judges, the same way we're creating our next point guards? You know what I'm saying? Because, it's not just, for me, it's not just enough to vote, right? I need to know that I need to know for you I need to vote, but I also need to know that 20 years from now, man, the people that we're putting in office will have our concerns at hand. So, like you say, the only thing, what does Biggie say? Slaying crack rock or have a wicked jump shot. We got to do more of that, man.
Yeah.
And we got to start putting. We got to, at 7, 8, 9 years old, the same way they have Pop Warner football. If a cat has the ability to spit at 14 to 15 years old, then that tells me he has the ability to be a great attorney.
Yeah, right, right. Bars, yeah. And that's real. And I always have, when I talk about this on stage, I always say how my ideas come out of left field. But I think it's doable, man. It's just we're creative enough to do it. Like, you just got to make those things sexy. Like, as sexy as being a rapper is, or as being an athlete is, even though the money is not the same, we can find a way to make it sexy. But everybody has to buy into it. You know what I mean? If like, for some weird, strange turn of events, being an attorney was if we made that like the most sexy boss thing that you could be, then everybody would is going that route. You know what I'm saying? But creatively, we just gotta figure out ways to finesse that. But everybody gotta be on board, and it's
Yeah, you're
that's
right
the
about
part.
that.
Yeah, that's the part. That's the hard part. All right,
Yeah,
so a
you're right about
marginalized voice. Where can they get the book?
that. You can go to amvonlinestore.org. .com. amvonlinestore.com. I am not an Amazon writer or I'm not an Amazon author. That's a part of my militancy. They're not going to get $1 from me, but there's some other issues behind that. But that's just, one of the things in writing a book. Writing a book, man, especially of this nature, will make you realize some things that you never thought of. And there was a point when I actually had finished writing the book, Lamont, and we went to the first stage of editing. And when the editors sent back the edit suggestions and I went back to do the work, I started reading research and I started saying, man, why in the hell am I writing this book? Because what I'm writing is never going to surpass this research that I'm reading, this absolutely phenomenal research. And then this was the voice that God said to me. He said, not only are you supposed to write this book, but you're supposed to do some of the things that this book says is missing. And so in terms of that, I said, I'm not going to be an Amazon author because there's too much that Amazon takes from you. And I'm not even talking royalties. But anyway, amvonlinestore.com.
Online. So I'm about to put that up real quick. Too much. Yeah, share that because I know a lot of people don't know. They're looking to self-publish or co-publish, and they wouldn't know that. So you self-published?
Yeah, I'm self-published. I did get some offers to go with a vanity publisher, and I chose not to. Well, here's my major issue with being an Amazon publisher, right? In business, and my background is actually business before I got into the social service thing. But in business, there's a thing called when you acquire a customer, it's called a customer acquisition cost. Okay. So what does it cost me to get a customer? I bought this ad. I went on the radio and I did this seminar, whatever it is. At the end of the day, I put a dollar amount to what it costs me to get that customer. Now, once I get that customer and I send them to Amazon, all the critical information that the customer has, name, address, email address, credit card information, all that information goes to Amazon, which means that if I now want to sell a T-shirt to you, I don't know that Lamont bought a book.
Oh, nah.
Amazon got all the information.
Nah, that's too big. Yeah, they're too big.
By building my own platform, when you buy my book, I got all your information. So in July, when I start selling shirts, my first marketing effort is going to go to the people who bought the book.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah.
So it's kind of like Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry says, I own my movies, I own my plays, I own my characters, I own everything. And so I'm trying to own as much of it as I possibly can. So that's why I chose not to go the Amazon route. Okay,
that makes sense. And we all appreciate that lesson. What are some of the other challenges that you ran into putting up your own store and self-publishing?
I don't, I'm asked that question a lot, and I don't know if I'm experienced enough to say the challenges, but I think the biggest challenge is one, the publishing side, as well as putting up the store. Man, that takes a lot of brain power and trying to write, and be very creative, and then trying to do the business side, man, it's kind of hard to, so it took a little bit longer for me to get the book out because of that. But actually, the time that the book came out was the right time because I released it on March 19th. And but just trying to wear those hats and it's kind of difficult to wear it simultaneously because like right now, there's some things I need to write for the book. There's a couple commentaries that people are asking me to write, but at the same time, there's some business stuff that I got to do, and it's hard to do both of them at the same time, so to speak.
Yeah, I can dig it.
That's my biggest challenge.
Yeah, being business and creative at the same time is always that's a doozy. People completely underestimate that. Hold on, let me make sure I put your where it go at. Make sure I put your social media up there. Yeah, IG Seed in the Bill. I knew that's what it was. Yeah. So Seed in the Bill. All right. Well, I appreciate you, Reginald Williams, author of Marginalized Voice and the Atrogenics This will be my new. I gotta get comfortable with it. I gotta, you know what I mean? So I can just throw it out there next to
Yeah.
when I get to CNN, that's gonna be the first word. I'm gonna have a list of like 10 words that I gotta immediately throw out there. Maybe, you know, they can be like, but Mr. King, you know, that's unfounded. I'm like, well, you gotta look at the astrogenics of the shit. First of all. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. If they want the book, they can go to amvonlinestore.com. They can follow you on Instagram, Seeding to Build. Reginald Williams, man, I appreciate look forward to working with you in the future, Jack.
We look, we've been talking about this for a few years.
Yeah.
Like I said, man, your mind, man, is crazy, man. And you know, it's always good to be around critical minds like yourself, bro.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Take care of our family down there. I'll talk with you.
Man. Appreciate you, man.
All right.
Peace.
That's what's up. Marginalized Voice. You can get the book self-published. AMVonlinestore.com. I'm gonna leave that up there for the newcomers. Great interview, man. The book. He puts, you know, a couple snippets. That's how it really landed on my radar, because he's been putting snippets on the, you know, on his feed, and a lot of them just be hidden, especially now. They be just hitting. It'd be like, ah, man, that was so relevant or whatever. So I wanted him to come on and talk about the book. So appreciate it. There's that. And hey, listen, this is a funny show. So hey, but these is tricky times right now. We got to talk about everything. So make sure you get the Humor Mill app, download the app, because you know, they already, the algorithms, social media algorithms is trying to block me on some of these platforms. So we're not going for it. Humor Mill is going to be the situation. So there's that. Let's go. What else? Let's go. Shout out to y'all, man. Again, I'm looking for a dollar show. So if you got $1 to spare, the Cash App is at the bottom. This is completely viewer support, viewer funded. Tiny Closet Studios, broadcasting center of operations. So there's that. What else? All right, it was something else I wanted to talk about, and I'm gonna try to play this word from an elder from yesterday, man, because I was really disappointed because the elder was dropping jewels. For those who don't know, I try to close the show when I can with a word from an elder, and this particular elder is call sign Alpha Papa, and he be dropping some old school jewels, you know, from a real baby boomer, the real kind. And I say the real kind, man, because you know I got called a boomer by some kids the other day, and I was so you know, that's like the new lingo. Sometimes, you know, I love what this generation did to the Trump rally. Man, these little 20 and unders, these 15 and unders, these TikTokers. I love what they did. As far as, if you don't know, on Friday, allegedly, a whole bunch of kids on the internet reserved tickets to the Trump's rally and didn't go. So they basically blocked out the seats. And I love them for that. But there's some things I don't like. I don't like how they hijack lingo and retro. They retro culture like that part of the culture didn't happen. Like, they, you know, the clothes and movie themes and all that. They really, like, when we did retro, when we was coming up, we did retro as a tribute. Like, a lot of kids now, everything is retro, but it's like it never happened. Like, how are you acknowledging something that's retro, but then scoffing like you the first one that seen it or did it? Like, that's impossible. And I hate how they hijack lingo, man. So the thing is, I don't know if you're paying attention, right? We got Generation X, Y, Z. Now, I believe I grew up at the end of Generation X. That's what I think. But I'm also, as a child of the 80s, I'm like at the top end of the millennials, right? The millennials are just after me. That's what they say. And then there's Y, and then there's Z. Z is like right now 15 and under, right? They grew up after year 2000. They grew up on the internet with a camera in their face. I call them shareables. That's my name for this generation, shareables, because they share everything. They're used to, where we all shy and private, they're used to sharing everything. So it's shareables. But the shareables are Generation Z. And the nickname for Z is Zoomers, only because they give X, me, boomers. I got called a boomer by a 37-year-old man in a phone conversation. We were talking. He was a political candidate, and it was an interview, and he was in the middle of the conversation. This dude, you know what? I'm gonna dig him up. I'm gonna have him on the show, man, because he got to address that, man. I gotta hold him accountable. He was like 30. We were talking about millennials, right? So I kept saying millennial, and he kept saying millennials, and I was like, I said, how old are you? And he was like 30. I'm about to be 37. I said, you're not a millennial. And then he was like, how old are you? And I told him, and he was like, well, you're a boomer. I was like, no, that's not how that works. No, I'm not. He hold on a second. Yo, you're live. Yeah, you live. What's up? You're live right now. What's up? Yeah. I mean, what you mean you didn't mean this is your third time calling? Yeah. It's just audio. Yeah. I, yeah. I mean, I certainly would have, but you calling in the middle of the show, Jack. N- nah, we hoping for the spike. What city is that in? Uh, yeah, he had to he had to book a smaller venue. That's what that was. All right. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right, let me I hit you back. Uh dang, I said y'all couldn't hear. I wish y'all could have. He wow. Damn, I don't know what's going on, man. This whole man, the last 2 days. See, that's what I'm saying, man. I got these platforms, man. The last 2 days been real tricky. It was J. Anthony Brown luncheon. I wish y'all could have heard that. But we gonna work that out. That's terrible that y'all didn't hear that. Anyway, what was I saying? All right, we about to close the show out. No, so the dude, y'all should have heard that. That's crazy how you couldn't. I got the phone hooked up and everything. All right, we're gonna figure that out because that was funny. He just called in the middle of the show. Marcus, you know what I'm talking about. It's tricky. They'll let you do, like, depending on how much you pay to be on them, they'll let you do something one day, and then the next day you can't do it. I was taking phone calls for 3 weeks, live on the program, live on the air. J. Anthony Brown just called me 3 times. I took him on the third call, pulled it up. We just rapped just now, and y'all ain't hear none of it. But that's fine. He'll be back. But anyway, so let me close my story out. So anyway, so the dude called me a boomer, right? So he explains. I said, well, what is a boomer? And he was like, baby boomer. And I said, you do know that that's an actual term for an actual generation. The generation there was a after World War II and all the men start coming home. There was a big boom of babies, hence baby boomers. So baby boomers are like in their 70s. Like, what is you talking about? 70s and 80s. Like, how you gonna throw me in? Yeah, what they call y'all boomers, and then the Generation Zers. It used to be Generation Zers, but then they went to Zoomers. So there's that. So I just wanted to say that. I don't even know where I was going with that story. But anyway, download Humor Mill. And unfortunately, I won't play a word from my elder because I'm not going. If I can't get this right, I'm gonna do some troubleshooting later on this evening. But you know what does work? Um, your viewer support on the Cash App. That does work. So you can go ahead and do that. Everybody send me $1. We good to go. This show has been brought to you in part by drunkenfruit.com. Now taking orders in the DMV. They had to go through some issues, and phase 2 is now jumping. So it's a great product. Visit the website. And also Hamlin Legal. You try and get off? Call Hamlin Legal. That's the slogan. That's the commercial. The commercial run on the radio. But like, you trying to get off? Hamlin Legal. That's my attorney out of Baltimore, Maryland. So there's that. Anyway, appreciate y'all. Today was an excellent show. Shout out to Reginald Williams for stopping through. Shout out for you for tuning in for an hour every day. This is what we're doing. I moved the time because Fridays I'm on Karen Hunter, and so what we're gonna do is 6 to 7 Monday through Friday. I'm on Karen Hunter show 3 to 6. Get off that show, do mine. Consistency. We're gonna be consistent, baby. That's what it is. Tell somebody, share it when it comes in your notifications, and it's all for a good cause. And what cause is that? B cause. Appreciate y'all. I'll talk to y'all in a minute. And don't do nothing stupid. And if you do, don't say I told you to do the shit.